Trump has no shortage of incompetent, unqualified personal lawyers that have lost multiple cases for him to put up as nominees for various very important positions in the government. This time, he failed to get appointed Alina Habba, one of his personal lawyers, who's lost a case for him, of course. I think that seems to be a qualification. And we're going to talk about what happened there and how the old prosecutor in that district may get to keep her job, according to the judges out there. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This is Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of this content. Brian, tell us a little bit more about the dilemma that's happening out there in New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm going to give a very brief overview on this, as you call it, a dilemma. But I think it's also important that we do a little bit of a deep dive into Miss Habba.
Sure. Yeah, I could tell you a little bit about her. She's one of my favorite lawyers in this whole Trump MAGAverse. So I think she graduated from law school in like 2010. So she's barely older than me. Not to say I'm very young, but you know,
she went to an outstanding law school though, right?
No, she went to a law school called the Widener University out in Pennsylvania. I've never heard of it. It's certainly not an Ivy League. It's not recognized.
It's highly ranked. Out of the 200 or so law schools, accredited law schools in the United States, it has very high ranking, doesn't it, Sean?
No, I think according to U.S. News, it's somewhere in the 170s, which is out of like less than 200 ABA accredited law schools. So it's kind of like one of the last ranked schools. So not good there either. Anyway, prior to becoming Trump's personal lapdog, she worked in private practice. She, I think, did some consumer protection types of cases, some, suing a nursing home. That's one case that's been written about a little bit in a class action. Then she became a partner at a firm that was actually started by and owned by her husband at the time. And then eventually she started her own practice, which was very close to a New Jersey country club that Trump owned. And that's where she found Trump, who was down and out in like 2021, between his two presidencies. And he, I guess, befriended her. And she was even involved in some sort of a legal scandal at that country club where an employee was threatening to sue for sexual harassment type of claims. And she helped facilitate or maybe compel this employee to enter into an NDA. Interesting stuff.
But Sean, she does have a tremendous amount of criminal experience because that's what the U.S. attorney does.
From what I can tell, she has about as much criminal experience that you and I do, which is not much at all. She has no prosecutorial experience.
I've tried criminal cases, so
okay.
I think
you are more qualified than her.
Yeah.
You are more qualified than her to be a prosecutor for the District of New Jersey. But she has no prosecutorial experience. I don't even think she's spent one day as a government lawyer. She got sanctioned $1 million for filing a baseless RICO lawsuit against Hillary Clinton. She's been mocked by federal judges who've referred to some of her filings as incomprehensible in terms like that. She screwed up Trump's defamation trial against E. Jean Carroll.
Maybe if this doesn't work out for her, she could get a job representing the My Pillow guy.
I mean, that would be perfect. That seems to be the demographic that she caters to.
Okay, so let's talk about her getting this nomination. Obviously, Sean has laid the groundwork, and anyone with half a brain can figure out why she got this this very significant nomination. So just to put it into context, the U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey, meaning they only have one district in New Jersey. California, for example, has multiple.
Yeah.
Is the highest law enforcement officer, federal law enforcement officer in that state, representing the president, has to be appointed by the president of the United States and confirmed by the Senate. There is a rule that the president can make 120-day appointments, meaning that within the 120 days, the Senate is expected to act under the rule. It's United States Code Section 546. And the idea is the Senate during that time confirms or rejects. Well, here, the Senate took no action, in part because the two United States senators from New Jersey issued what's called a blue card, which means they don't want to vote on it. They're not approving it. And the decorum up until now has been to honor that and to not move forward, because generally U.S. attorney appointees are vetted and approved by the senators from that state. Even if it's a Democrat and a Republican president, oftentimes they find middle ground. Well, not here, of course.
Yeah.
So what happens next? The 120 days has now expired as of July 22nd.
Well, the procedure is the panel of federal judges in that district get to decide what happens, and they can extend the interim term that Habba, this very amazing jurist, had, but they chose not to. They chose to give it to her deputy, Desiree Grace, who is a seasoned career prosecutor. I don't know if she's a Democrat or Republican, and I don't care, and it shouldn't matter because prosecutorial offices need to be independent. That's how the system is designed. That's how it's supposed to work, at least, but obviously not in Trump land. He only wants to have his allies and lapdogs in those types of positions. In response, Attorney General Pam Bondi fired Grace and tried to reappoint Habba as the acting U.S. attorney for that district. And then the court said that she can't do that. But there's even more recent update.
There's a couple of important things here before we get to the most recent update, which came down just a few minutes ago. But first of all, one of the reasons Habba's been criticized, is because not just her lack of prosecutorial experience, meaning any, but also she's been involved in very political, polarizing actions, not the least of which is she charged 2 Democrat polarizing actions, not the least of which inspection at an ICE facility, which they're allowed to do, and then claiming that they got into some kind of an altercation with ICE agents. And you can look that up yourself and be your own judge about what exactly happened there, but it really didn't help her position with the Senate and with the confirmation process. So what's happened since? Well, the administration is so determined to put Ms. Habba in there that they have now devised a 2-step process. The first step, the first workaround, Shant, that happened a few days ago, was they were going to appoint her to a special attorney role and keep the top position fired and out of there. And they would then allow her to perform U.S. attorney duties indefinitely, though that could face potential legal challenges. But then they really doubled down on that like just a few hours ago. Yeah,
they did. And so now the whole move is they withdrew the nomination. Then what would happen next? And it's so transparent. What would happen next is our lovely Attorney General Pam Bondi would appoint Habba as what's called the first assistant U.S. attorney for that district. And that's typically the second ranking official. But since the post is technically vacant, Habba would automatically fill that role on a temporary basis for, I don't know, as long as Trump hopes it will be filled. Because the reason they have to do it like this is because she can't simultaneously be the nominee for the position and acting as that temporary second ranking official who's actually doing the work of the first, the top official there. So
but here's the problem with this. And then before we wrap up, I want to spend a couple minutes on this being a problem elsewhere briefly, is that the problem here is that there is a statute that says the judges can make this appointment.
That's right.
And they're undermining that. And they fired the acting U.S. attorney.
Trump is undermining the judges?
Shocking.
Yeah.
So, Shant, this is not in a vacuum only happening in the great state of New Jersey, right?
Yeah, this may happen here in California because I think we have 3 or is it 4 positions that are similar. There were interim appointments and they're coming up on their expiration period of that interim initial appointment. And the same fight may happen over here. If Trump fails to get someone confirmed, the same fight may happen here, and the courts may step in here and say, no, the panel in that district.
Let me be a little specific about this, and these could be my final words because I don't want to go too long. We could do just a discussion on these U.S. attorneys that are nominated for California. California has 4 districts, right? The northern, eastern, central, and southern, right? Central, yep. Meaning the Los Angeles area, one of the largest districts in the United States. Obviously, these are major issues. These are the highest ranking law enforcement officers. And so there have been 3 appointed. The Eastern District hasn't been appointed yet, but the 3 that are appointed is Bill Asali for Los Angeles, Adam Gordon for San Diego, and Craig Misakian of San Francisco. They were all appointed by 120-day terms, which will expire in August and September. The first one is going to expire in a week. I am reading this because I want to be accurate. And there's been no action taken. So I think you're going to see the exact same thing happen here. I think this is typical part of their playbook, which is never give in, never concede anything, fight to a death, and try to get the Supreme Court to weigh in. And I think that rather than the administration of justice, because believe me, Shant and I are heavily involved in the legal community throughout the United States. There are many, many qualified law enforcement people who could serve in this position. Friends of mine have been former United States attorneys for the Central District of California, and they are, although they're partisan policy, they're nonpartisan in their job and what they do, and that's what we need. So you get the last word, Shant.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Brian, for you to make on this. It should not be a politicized position. This isn't. Yes, everyone has their own leanings and biases and political beliefs, but these positions, it's the top federal law enforcement official in that district. And I think going through these types of very suspicious routes, very confusing legal challenges, really politicizes it and deliberately politicizes it. And I'm glad that the courts are kind of pushing back and saying that, no, here's what the law is on this. Here's what the rule is on this. And again, the courts are the last resort for stopping this. They're the final line of defense against authoritarian action. They are the body within our country that will prevent this from happening. So, and we see that happening here. And I hope this shakes out the way that we think it'll shake out, and the Trump administration gets stopped. We don't need any more of his cronies and lapdogs and his failed, terrible personal lawyers to be in these types of positions of power. Well, I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. We're 2 lawyers at Kabateck LLP. If you like this content, hit the subscribe button. Our show is called Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.